Hello, Rene. How are you? We are here back with All About Trauma, this program dedicated to understanding trauma. And really for us, Rene, an exploration of this subject. I am a so-called expert in the field, but I've opened this space for myself and you, coming more from the naive perspective of the public, let's say, to really ask a genuine question. What are we talking about when we talk about trauma in all its different sort of aspects? But before we begin the real program, we're waiting for YouTube to go live. So in the meantime, I wanted to tell you that I've been dipping in my local wine here some biscuits. And I want to show them to you. They're called taralli. They actually are an
Tarali.
Italian biscuit, yeah, taralli, and they kind of, they're regional to the southern part of Italy, and they kind of compete with the long, thin piece of bread called grissini, which you find in almost every restaurant that you'll go in Italy. And so it's kind of like a cracker, like, so this, if I break it, there you go, I'll have to vacuum the place afterwards, but it's like a cracker. And they come in different flavors. So they can be sweet, so they can be glazed with sugar sometimes, and they can also be savory, so salty. This one is chili. This is why it's a little on the reddish side of things. It's made of wheat, and I had some with fennels recently. They're very nice. And yeah, we also sometimes dip them in red wine, not white wine, and then enjoy them with maybe some meat or some cheese. It's a bit of a snack thing, not for a meal. It's more like a snack in like late afternoon, just before eating dinner, or just for dinner when you eat a piece of cheese, taralli, a glass of wine. So that's how we do it. What do you think?
I think that's fun. I think that sounds like a very sweet meal to have as a snack, like you said, because maybe ideally I was like, oh, when I travel to somewhere that's Italian, can I ask for taralli part of the dessert? Or is it actually just a snack I can just get at the store and just say, oh, I have some wine at home, let me have it and enjoy a quick snack. So that sounds very delicious. YouTube is on. Thank you again
Great.
for sharing that very sweet story. So I can see
Yes,
how
sure.
happy you are when.
And I'm curious to hear, do you have crackers or biscuits that you dip into your milk or tea there? I know you have chai there in Kenya. We've spoken before. Do you have this kind of
Yeah.
interaction with food? And yeah.
Yeah, so we have some biscuits that are locally made. They are called manji biscuits. It's been there for a while. So it's the normal crust, but mostly rectangular, a bit thin also, and they are quite absorbent. So they are easily to dip in milk and have some. And I was just telling you before the live that when I was young, I used to dip it in the tea and eat it, and I was really punished for it. I was like, that is not the right way to do it. You know, that's poor table manners. So I was told you have to bite and sip and bite and sip because I used to dip it in and sometimes it breaks off in the in the milk and now it's just a whole mess. So I was a learning
Yeah.
experience. One of my first lessons on table manners.
So they're made for dipping, but not like, I didn't get that. You can only drink and bite,
Yeah,
or you dip.
you can dip. You can dip. In fact, I would say
Okay.
it tastes much better, and everyone would say it tastes much better when you dip.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So I was just trained in school that here in school, because you want to be a good student, we're teaching you proper table manners. I would stuff. So just bite and say, but always to this day, I would say it tastes much better when you dip them. Always. And I think even terali is the same.
Nice, nice, nice. So taralli is something that you can dip in the wine in a public place. Like if you go to, particularly in
Oh.
village life, if you go to the local bar, usually elder people will be there either after work or because they've retired, and while they play card, they may have a glass of wine, some taralli and stuff like that. So it's very sort of publicly acceptable to do. Anyway, bring some show and tell next time. Let us see what
I
you're
will.
talking about. As for today, we are covering,
Yeah, I
Rene,
definitely
my
will.
God, the final question of
Definitely
the
will.
ACE test. We have
So
been working at this for the past 4 months. Really, perhaps giving one of the most expanded explanation of this test that I think is out there on YouTube, and certainly one of the most thought about sort of conversations around the topic. So that means that from next week, we'll start a sort of a new series of topics. But today, and maybe next time, if we don't finish today talking about this question, we are talking about the last question, and it has got to do with prison, if I understand well. So this is the previous one. Are you getting us there? Here it is. So someone in my household went to prison. That's the statement, and then it's for the person to say yes or no. And what really interests us psychologists, counselors, is whether you answer yes to a question. And so, yeah, the statement is pretty obvious, isn't it? Someone in your household went to prison. And again, I think it's important to perhaps include brothers and sisters of our parents, not just our parents, and of course, brothers and sisters within your family, and then your parents, right? Now, I don't have much of an experience myself. When I think of prison, the only person that comes to mind is this boy who used to bully me when I arrived in Rome, where I might have told this story before, where I would just sort of walk in the street, and if he saw me from across the street, he would literally cross the street to come and punch me in the face. And so he ended up in prison. I think I've spoken about this before. And then I have a couple of clients who either have had their parents going to prison for, yeah, small, rather criminal acts to do with mostly drug use and addiction, really. But otherwise, I don't have much. The thing that comes to mind for me is the shame, because of course there is stigma attached to the word prison, right? So dealing with, like, being the child of a parent who has gone to prison carries shame, obviously. And then having a sibling, like a brother or sister that is in prison or has gone to prison, I would imagine that also carries quite a streak of shame. Although we kind of have it easier to not talk about our brothers and sisters, but it's harder not to talk about our mothers and fathers, because that's usually what, everybody assumes that you have a mother and you're a father. And when you get to know somebody a bit better, the question of, what is your mother doing? What is your father doing? Where do they live? And so on always comes up. What do you think?
I think for this question, it's actually a very packed question, and maybe I can even give a reminder for our viewers that we have a live with J-Man, and he shared his story as someone who you can remember
True.
that his stepfather went to prison. It's a very good live. I really suggest everyone go and watch it, because he shared the story much better than I can reiterate it. And we get to see that, especially from the perspective of a child, which is obviously the perspective of this test. It can really be daunting. In fact, to share a story, there's a person that I know and showed me this story that one of their family members, their uncle actually, went to prison. So the context is that this man married this lady and they had one child, but there was some domestic abuse in the family, and he was quite abusive and violent. So it reached a point whereby the lady was able to call the cops on him and have him arrested. But when he was taken away, the lady quickly got to find out that she wasn't financially able, economically able to do it, to handle the burden of the household by herself. So she went back and tried to get him out, that even if he's violent and that he's been taken away, which is somehow, to rehabilitate it, to change his ways, it made her situation worse. So she really had to, I can imagine from a point of the lady, she really had to choose which one will actually weigh more, the weight of
The
handling
material
this violent
needs,
man.
psychological
But
needs.
yeah,
No, go
yes,
ahead. I was just thinking, right? It's a battle
and
between
and
my physical needs and my psychological needs. Go ahead, go ahead.
absolutely, and it's one of the things that she really had to understand, and especially understand for the weight of her children and her household. She wasn't able to take care of the needs. She will have to move houses. She will have to move, maybe move her children's school, especially. And she just thought, let me just get him back. Maybe he can change while being here, because while he's there, it's not helping me necessarily, from what I'm understanding, and it's probably not even changing there, because possibly he's getting even worse and getting even betrayed and angry that how could you, you know, betray me and throw me to these authorities and now treat me like a criminal from what I'm doing in my own household. So getting to experience that situation, they did come. He did come back, and you can assume he continued with their abusive situation, to the point now she had to now leave him in secrecy. She had to escape from him. So I found that story something that probably you can get to understand and see from the child and also from the lady's point of view, that this man was put away, and because of the material need, you bring him back, but after a while, you put yourself away. So you're wondering, what kind of mentality could that be, that now you're just leaving him into his own space instead of him taken away from your space?
I'm always struck by how complexity exponentially grows when we just start to look at something with a bit more attention, right? There's so many layers of reality that have emerged out of the word prison, out of this just one case, right? Um, the consideration, for example, that by him, her partner, and the father of this child, if I understand, they had a child, yeah,
Yeah.
being imprisoned, the child would not have a father. She would not be financially able to provide for the child. Um, the father may come out eventually and be even more violent and angry because of the betrayal and what had happened, which would endanger the child even more.
Yeah.
And also the parent potentially being abused and exposed to greater violence than he was portraying in the house, right? So all of that consideration, that the partner being in prison might not be the best thing, is quite a complex one and quite a valid one. There are many valid points to be considered there, right? It's not as simple. That's the message. It's not as simple as just putting this person away, right? I think what you're speaking about also speaks of the reality of your country compared to perhaps more developed Western countries, where one, divorce has been completely culturally accepted, it's even encouraged. All the legal systems are very much in support of it, giving a lot of different supports to to women in particular. Actually, at the moment, the system, and this is not me really saying this, but some other experts in the field, including legal people, is slightly biased towards women in this respect, in terms of how many times the woman will get the full custody of the child, for example, the kind of supports that she will get compared to the kind of support that a man may get. For example, for domestic violence, in this case, there is this domestic violence involved. A woman can receive all sorts of non-profit organization support, whereas a man will have it a lot harder to find that same kind of support. So I think there is also a cultural context here. We are reading some culture involved in the story. What would you say to that?
Actually, I would say it's actually very true. And even to add on what you said about shame, there is some shame in this context, because in the culture that we're in, marriage is very highly esteemed. And in society, when they hear this is the lady who put her husband behind bars, that's a shameful thing to carry, because the society wouldn't just say that, okay, you're a victim and it made sense. No, you're supposed to be a wife, you're supposed to be a husband, you're supposed to have a home. So the fact that you had to bring out the government to break your home, it's a shameful thing. It's not something that is highly esteemed. So there is shame on her part that we could have also prompted her to just bring the man back. Because when we're talking about divorce, I'm thinking, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, let's also remind ourselves, though, that family has been an institution for so long, like tens of thousands of years at least. And so the fact that your culture still holds the family institution as the primary governing body of social stability and social productivity and connection is not a bad thing. In our modern cultures, Western cultures, where indeed the government and sort of third-party bodies, governmental or private bodies, have come and broken up and helped the breakup of the family institution, things are not going that well. Suicide is on the increase, depression is on the increase, medicalization for mental illness is on the increase, all mental illnesses are on the increase, obesity, anorexia, suicide from children and adolescents, all sorts of statistics are going up. There are so many factors involved, but the breaking down of the family institution has so many negative wide repercussions, and there is abundant research to show that. So what is we always have to choose the lesser of the two evils, in a way, in life oftentimes. And so what is the best thing to do in your cultural context and in the context of Western family context? There is no doubt that in my culture, if there is domestic violence involved, calling the police is the right thing, and it's going to be socially validated. And as you said, in your culture, it's not. I hope the viewers, the people that are watching this, are going to consider how these two validating and invalidating responses are equally valid in themselves, because we Western modernized countries don't have the answer to how a modern society should run. And we are suffering, okay? So we don't really, it's a big difficult comparison to make there. Now, in terms of the shame that you mentioned, I love what you said, because indeed it's not just the shame of the person that goes to prison, but it's the shame of the people that are related to the person that goes to prison. And in this case, even the person that actually called the cops to get him to prison, which is an outcome you wouldn't expect, right? Why do you think the people around her would be inclined to reject her? Because that's what shame sort of triggers, signals. Shame signals the sense that we are in danger of exclusion from the group, that we have done something wrong and we might be expelled from the group, which is a great fear that we carry from, you know, our evolutionary times, because in the past being expelled from the group meant almost for sure death, and we carry this fear. So what is it in your culture that, other than the respect that people have for the family institution, what is it in your culture that this woman fears other people will say or do? Oops. I wonder, Rene? Okay, so maybe Rene has gone offline because he has been experiencing some power shortages there in Kenya. So that it's quite possible. Ah, no, Rene, you're still there. I thought you'd gone offline. Rene? No, it's something strange. So anyway, and one thing I actually want to say is that
I can hear you now. I think I got.
Mhm. Oh, it's been a bit difficult. So actually, I just recalled that I've been to prison 2 times in my life. Funny thing that I should not remember this, but I went to prison 2 times for less than a day. And it was a very humiliating experience, extremely humiliating experience, because suddenly they take all your rights away, and they make you feel completely powerless and completely unable to care for your needs, including going to the toilet. And I went to prison twice, once because I had inadvertently broken an immigration rule when I was a student in Australia, whereby I had like a limitation to work for only 20 hours a week. And I found a job actually at the university, a proper job at the university, and they were giving me a lot of hours, and basically I thought it would be fine, and it wasn't. And so they arrested me and they expelled me from the country. That was when I was 27 or something, or a bit less actually. And then I went to prison when I did my walk in Turkey. I crossed the whole of Turkey on foot without ever taking any transportation, over valleys and rivers and mountains with snow. And when I arrived at the border between Turkey and Greece, it was COVID, and the border was closed. And so they sent me to the Bulgarian border, which was open. And in going to the Bulgarian border, I happened, again, unawarely, I happened to walk on a normal off-road path, road, basically. No difference from any other road. But that particular segment was actually a military zone. And there was no guard, there was no barrier, there was no fence, there was nothing that stopped me from entering this military zone. But when I was in the military zone, a guy with a gun who was sitting under the shade of a tree, so he had probably wandered from his post or the entrance to this place, and was just taking a rest under a tree, stopped me and asked me, and then other guards came and eventually they arrested me and they took me to prison, to proper prison. They took everything away from me, and they released me some 7-8 hours later in the middle of the night at 11, in a place I didn't know, 11 p.m. at night, in a place I didn't know, with no devices. They had sequestered all my devices, mobile phone, tablet, everything, and just me and my wallet, basically. So that was also a very humiliating experience. Yeah, and of course I don't normally talk about this because I mean I obviously I know I didn't do anything wrong per se. Turkey is a bit of a crazy country in this sense, but you know, even if you're in the right, it's so easy for anybody to judge or suspect that you were in the wrong because such institution, such body has put you into prison, right? Like we know many activists who are arrested and put into prison. So there is a proper strong stigma attached to prison. And Rene, are you there? No, Rene is still having issues. So I think today that's gonna be it. I'm going to end the live in a moment. I want to thank the viewer here who has been watching this program so far. Rene is obviously experiencing a bunch of difficulties, and that's more or less what we've got to say about this last question of DSE, which I remind again everybody is when someone in my household went to prison. If you answer yes to one of these, then it's an important factor. You can take the test, the DSE test, if you scan the QR code there on this corner, and that will take to a page on my website, and it's not a commercial page. And you can just read the questions, answer yes, and then you can send me the answers if you want me to comment on your situation or share with me your story. So again, thank you very much for being here. I'll see you next week with some more comments and discussions about trauma. Bye bye.